What's up, class? We are on 7.3, Measures of Economic Development. This is actually two videos. This one is going to be focusing on economic measures. The next one is going to be focusing on social measures. So you need to be able to describe the economic measures of development. There's a lot of different ways to measure this. There's no like one straightforward way. So we're going to go through a few of the main ones and what that might mean for us understanding a place's development. So first, in general, what is development? One definition gives a specified state of growth or advancement, but it's really hard to just be able to answer that in a straightforward way. That's why we have many different ways to measure. And also kind of going back to scales of analysis, keep in mind that we're going to see development happening, or different scales will show development in different ways, right? So we'll see a little bit more nuance depending on what scale we're looking at. These are just some examples of ways that development can be measured. So let's go ahead and go through them. Here we have a list, right? We're going to be looking at GDP, GNP, GNI, looking at informal and formal sectors of the economy, income distribution in terms of the Gini coefficient, and then also fossil fuels and renewable energy and what that means to measure development. All right, so those of y'all that are in economics, this should not come as any new information, right? But we look at data for economic indicators in a couple different ways. Per capita, which means per person. So that stat is divided by the country's population. When you see gross, that just means total amount. So let's go through these. Here we have gross domestic product. This is the key word, right? Domestic. So this is the total value of officially recorded goods and services by the citizens and corporations within a country's border, hence domestic. This is measured per year. So one way you can think of it is goods plus services equals GDP. Then we have gross national product. This is the total value of goods and services by citizens and corporations of a country, as well as foreign investments within a given year. So it's domestic and international goods and services. That's GNP. So if a corporation has holdings in another country, then that would also get added to that stat. And then I'll move myself over. Then we have gross national income. So this is the most accurate measure of wealth because this also takes into account trade. So imports and exports. So if we look down here, GDP plus exports minus imports, that is GNI. So these are just a few of the economic indicators that you'll most commonly see. If we think about sectors within the economy, kind of building off of the previous objective, average per capita income is higher in developed countries, right? That's pretty general trend. This is because people typically work in the tertiary sector, which pays a lot more than the other sectors, right? You're going to have a lot more income than if you're working in the primary sector. So we can see that relationship here with more developed and less developed countries. So for sectors of the economy, we have formal and informal. So formal, this is regulated and taxed by the government. This is like kept track of. So this is officially included in the GDP and GNI, and this is typical jobs, like typical professions. This is what we see most commonly. A country with a larger formal economy is typically more developed. Informal, this is anything that is not regulated by government. So a great, example of that is like drugs, right? Anything on the black market, people are not going to be reporting that to the government. So this can also be something as, simple as babysitting, right? Anything that you're not reporting officially, that is considered informal. So moving on to income distribution, the Gini coefficient, this is the measurement of the distribution of income within a population. So this is measured on a scale from 0 to 1. The higher the number, so the higher it is, or closer it is to 1, the higher the income inequality. So more developed countries tend to have lower Gini coefficients. Less developed countries tend to have higher Gini coefficients. So here's an example. This is from 2019. And as you can see on the scale here, these increase to, it the highest number is 1. And you can see general trends in the world. Like here in Europe, there tends to be less inequality. And then finally, energy consumption and the use of fossil fuels versus renewable energy. So for more developed countries, this is the highest per capita consumption of energy. So developed countries, people have far more access to not just electricity, but electronic devices. Think about how many things like you yourself might have plugged in at home at the moment. And because of that, we see a demand for fossil fuel increasing in developed countries. For renewable energy, we see nuclear energy increasing in more developed countries as like a source of renewable energy. And also hydroelectric is higher in developed countries. So for instance, Switzerland, hydroelectricity is the primary source just because of all the waterways that are here. So it's a great option for renewable energy.